Welcome to Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are every day. People like to welcome you all to the show. Today, I want to discuss with you all my personal favorite. I call him a historian. I call him a spiritual advisor. I call him the messenger of God, and that's the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? I'm doing this because the message that he's given say for over 80 years now, was so powerful back then till we, or they who was in existence, who was living back 80 years ago, it was over their heads and it was too profound, I guess, for them to actually deal with. When they would bring up issues such as integration or let's do this and let's do that, and he'd say it's not gonna work, and they thought, oh, you just, being against the movement, but he had a knowledge of the colonizer that they didn't have. So he's telling them, look, this came from the God himself. This is what's gonna work, and this is what's not gonna work. And they didn't believe it. But after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, people started waking up saying, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad been saying this for a while, and we might need to stop and start paying attention. Let's go back and read some of his works. Let's go look at his students like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's go listen to them. Let's go back and listen to Muhammad Ali. Let's go back and listen to what Malcolm X was saying. Let's go back and listen to Brother Ward-Dean Muhammad. Let's go back and look at all those who, Brother Supreme Shabazz Allah, right? Let's go back and study Brother Clarence 13X 5% Nation. Something was heavy and profound in those teachings. There had to be weight in regards to the teachings, a heavy weight, in order for it to attract so many people. Something about the teachings had to be so powerful to where it would penetrate even the hardest hearts and stand them upright, and they would move. Something had to be powerful. So right now I want to introduce you to some of his works. It's so much, and they're so heavy that really, honestly, with my amount of study, I can only go in so deep. But if you would just Google and just sit down and listen to your brother Farrakhan, and just sit back and you judge, not what they put out on him. Don't tell me that you understand until you hear the man, like Public Enemy said. Check this out. The original man, Allah, which is God in Arabic, the original man, Allah, has declared is none other than the black man. Is the original man. He is the first and last, and maker and owner of the universe. From him comes all, brown, yellow, red, and white. By using a special method of birth control law, the black man was able to produce the white race. Now, go look up the components of melanin, right? Right, we're gonna get that for you. I wanna introduce you to something, right? Because I want to debunk this theory, right? How they said that the black man started off in Africa, right? Then they said that over time he went into Europe, and by there being a limited amount of sunlight And in those cold conditions and in a dark cave, he began to lose his melanin. His hair began to straighten and lose its pigmentation and became blonde. By being in that dark cave and seeing, his eyes wasn't brown anymore. They became blue and green or recessive color. And he lost all the melanin and pigmentation in his body till he became pale. And therefore you have the white man. And you even had black people repeating this idiocy to the public. I couldn't believe it myself. So let me debunk that theory and prove to you once and for all what it is, so we don't have to go through this no more. Now look, like many substances in the body, the chemical makeup of melanin includes a mixture of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. The melanin chemical formula is carbon 18, hydrogen 10, nitrogen 2, and oxygen 4. And these are the atoms that makes up the amount of atoms that's in the carbon, the amount of atoms that's in the hydrogen, the amount of atoms that's in the nitrogen, and the amount of atoms that's in the oxygen, which giving melanin a molecular weight or molar mass of 318 grams per mole. And that gives you that color. So you cannot, I don't care where you stick this formula that comprises of melanin. It could be in the coldest, darkest, wettest, dampest, whatever, and that melanin will remain the same. You can't take nobody out of Africa and stick him in Europe and over time think he gonna lose. Thinking of the molar mass of melanin and the molecular weight of melanin would just lose itself because it's in a colder climate. That the carbon 18, the hydrogen 10, the nitrogen 2, and the oxygen 4, it'll just dissipate. Come on, man. It's ridiculous. Right. So we just wanted to debunk that theory so they can stop saying stuff like that, dude. And let's get on back to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Talking about the black man, he is the first and the last, and maker and owner of the universe. From him comes the brown, the yellow, red, and white. By using a special method of birth control law, the black man was able to produce the white race. The true knowledge of the black and white mankind should be enough to awaken the so-called Negroes, put them on their feet and on the road to self-independence. Yet they are so afraid of the slave masters that they even love them to their destruction and wish that the bearer of truth would not tell it, even if he knows it. They saying they so afraid of white people that if a black person knows the truth, they don't want you to tell it. Be quiet. You're going to get us in trouble. Or, man, with that truth, I'm going to have to act on it, or you're going to make me do something. You're going to make me be responsible. And right now, I don't want to be responsible. I'd just rather sit around and let white folk do it. I mean, come on, man. The time has arrived when it must be told the world over who the original man is, for there are millions who do not know it. Why should this question be put before the world today? Because it is the time of judgment between the two, black and white people. And to heed without the knowledge of the original man means to be without the knowledge of the rightful owner of the earth. And he wrote this over 50 years ago. And he's telling you 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, that what we're getting ready to come up against, these things has to be put out and these things has to be known. But You have some of us in positions and leaders are so afraid. They don't want to put the truth out in fear that there might be some backlash against them, or there's a spook waiting to harm them, or a boogeyman or something. When you got the internet, you got Google, knowledge and information. It's the information age. Nobody's coming after you for putting out the information. Hell, Trump say whatever the hell he want to say and throw it out there, and the people bag him and love him. So it's time for the black man to stand up. Let's put it like that. History of the original man, Allah, to whom praises is due, is now pointing out to the nations of the earth their rightful places, and this judgment will bring an end to wars over it. Now, it is so easy to recognize the original man, the real owner of the earth, by the history of the two black and white people. We have an unending past history of the black nation and a limited one of the white race. We find that history teaches that the earth was populated by the black nation ever since it was created. But the history of the white race doesn't take us beyond 6,000 years. Everywhere the white race has gone on our planet, he either found the original man or a sign that he had been there previously. Allah is proving to the world of black men that the white race actually doesn't own any part of our planet. The Bible, as well as the Holy Quran, bears witness to the above fact, if you are able to understand it. The knowledge of the white race removes all misunderstanding. A true knowledge of the white race removes once and for all times the mistakes that would be made in dealing with them. My followers, he's talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I can and are getting along with them in a more understandable way than ever because we know them. You can't blame one for the way he or she was born, for they had nothing to do with that. Can we say to them, why don't you do righteousness, when nature did not give righteousness to them? Or can we say to them, why are you such a wicked devil? Who is responsible, the maid or the maker? Who's responsible? The one that's made or the person that made him? The maid or the maker? The white man did not make himself. I repeat that. The white man did not make himself. Yet this does not excuse us for following and practicing his evil habits or accepting him for a righteous God just because he is not his maker. Spiritual civilization. The duty of a civilized man is to teach civilization and the arts and sciences of civilized people to the uncivilized. So you have to teach art and science and mathematics, black people, to anybody who's willing to listen. The duty of a divine messenger raised by Allah himself is to teach his people spiritual civilization, which is important and necessary for the success of a society. According to history, the people who refuse to accept divine guidance or Allah's message brought by his messengers are classified as uncivilized or savages. A well-educated, cultured, and courteous people make a beautiful society when it is spiritual. Good manners come from the civilized man who doesn't fail to perform his duties or her duties. Let me read that again. A well-educated, cultured, and courteous people make a beautiful society when it is spiritual. Good manners come from the civilized man who doesn't fail to perform his or her duty. You get that? You get, okay, cool. That's the kind of civilization that would be built from an educated culture and courteous people. Okay. There are several civilizations. We have a wicked one and a righteous one. It is a righteous civilization that is in the workings now. We all have been well trained into the wicked civilization. Now we must be trained into the knowledge of the righteous one. We must have a righteous, trained, civilized man who will not fail to perform his duty to us in guiding and teaching us. The righteous civilization. My people in America, the so-called Negroes, are under the searchlight of the righteous, who are offering to them the right guidance to supreme civilization of righteousness, never witnessed before on earth. The white race has failed to perform its duty of civilizing the American so-called Negroes. Of course, they have been their slaves for many centuries, and the slave masters have rights over them as long as they are the slave masters' slaves. However, if the slave masters free their slaves, not in words, but in deeds, the slave masters should provide the one slaves with the right civilization and with everything necessary for them to start an independent life as their slave masters have. Certainly, the so-called Negroes are being schooled, but is it the equal of their slave masters? No. The so-called Negroes are still begging for equal education after being blinded to the knowledge of self and their own kind for 400 years. The slave masters refuse to civilize the so-called Negroes into the knowledge of themselves, of which they were robbed. The slave masters also persecute and hinder anyone who tries to perform the most rightful duty. I will continue to say that as long as the so-called Negroes don't know who they really are and do not have the knowledge to free themselves from their slave masters' names and religion, they can't be considered civilized. Some of the so-called Negroes are ignorant to the important advantage of having their own nation's name. They think there is nothing to a name. I say they are right, but only in regard to the names they are now using, and not in regard to their own nation's names, which they don't have. The Bible says, a good name is better than gold. To continue to bear the slave master names make them the property of their slave masters, and they can never hope to receive equal recognition in the civilized world. It has been seen from the little chance my people have had to get a little education, and they have shown and proven that they are the original people, who are only asleep and in great need of the right civilized man who will perform his duty of awakening them. The so-called Negroes' fear of being deprived of food, clothing, and shelter, also the usual smile of the white slave master's children, prevents them from seeking the true knowledge of their own nation's civilization. Meaning that all white folks got to do is come smile in your face and pat you on your back, and you forget all about being free, the struggle, and creating your own independent, civilized community. I say that they must drop the slave master's names and religion, because both of these means nothing but continued slavery. If they would understand there is no other right path for my people. Of course, some, not all, some preachers and politicians who live off the ignorance of their people are opposed to the right civilization of our people. These are the people who teach the so-called Negro to eat the wrong food and to drink, to indulge in games of chance, gambling, to go half-dressed, and to look for salvation after death, and not give a hoot for salvation in this life as right civilization teaches us. Their teachings, my people, are not for your good. Come and follow the right path and the right God and be rightly civilized. You my people must know that you have not been rightly civilized. No one can enslave another who has equal education. My people lack science of the right kind. Allah is now here to give you and me a superior knowledge of things and a country to ourselves. Separation of the so-called Negroes from their slave master children is a must. It is the only solution to our problem. It was the only solution according to the Bible for Israel and the Egyptians, and it will prove to be the only solution for America and her slaves, whom she mockingly calls her citizens, without granting her citizenship. We must keep this in our minds at all times that we are actually being mocked. I think it is a disgrace to us for ever being satisfied with only a servant's part. Should not we as a people want for ourselves what other civilized nations have? I mean, come on. Wrote this over 50 years ago. And we still, until we adopt everything that he said and take it into our lives, we will still be facing this police brutality, injustice. We'll still be singing "We Shall Overcome." I mean, it was powerful when he stated that why are we satisfied with only a servant's part? All they gave us was a servant's portion, and that was good enough. Well, thank you. We appreciate you giving me the servant's part. I mean, it's better than nothing. You know, I could survive another day. I mean, come on, man. Wow, dude. You know, the sad part about it is that it shouldn't be that much work to do, but it's so much work to do. But it shouldn't be that much work to do. I don't know. But next time, these were the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words. We're going to continue on with a part 2 of this, or a continuation of the reading of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad words. But Verbal Pick Radio, we out. Till next time, as they say,